Section 36 of the Endeavour Journal of Sir Joseph Banks, Journal from 25 August 1768 to 12 July 1771 by Joseph Banks. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Gail Timmerman Vaughan. Section 36, April 1770, Part 2. 1770, April 19. New Holland sighted. With the first daylight this morn, the land was seen. At 10, it was pretty plainly to be observed. It made in sloping hills, covered in part with trees or bushes, but interspersed with large tracts of sand. At noon, the land much the same. We were now sailing along shore 5 or 6 leagues from it, with a brisk breeze of wind and cloudy, unsettled weather, when we were called upon deck to see 3 waterspouts, which at the same time made their appearance in different places, but all between us and the land. 2, which were very distant, soon disappeared, but the third, which was about a league from us, lasted full a quarter of an hour. It was a column which appeared to be of about the thickness of a mast or a middling tree, and reached down from a smoke-coloured cloud, about 2/3 of the way to the surface of the sea. Under it, the sea appeared to be much troubled for a considerable space, and from the whole of that space arose a dark-coloured, thick mist, which reached to the bottom of the pipe. When it was at its greatest distance from the water, the pipe itself was perfectly transparent, and much resembled a tube of glass, or a column of water, if such a thing could be supposed to be suspended in the air. It very frequently contracted and dilated, lengthened and shortened itself, and that by very quick motions. It very seldom remained in a perpendicular direction, but generally inclined, either one way or the other, in a curve, as a light body acted upon by wind is observed to do. During the whole time that it lasted, smaller ones seemed to attempt to form in its neighbourhood. At last one did, about as thick as a rope, close by it, and became longer than the old one, which at that time was in its shortest state. Upon this they joined together in an instant, and gradually contracting into the cloud, disappeared. 1770, April 20. The country this morn rose in gentle sloping hills, which had the appearance of the highest fertility. Every hill seemed to be clothed with trees of no mean size. At noon a smoke was seen a little way inland, and in the evening several more. 1770, April 21. In the morn the land appeared much as it did yesterday, but rather more hilly. In the even, again, it became flatter. Several smokes were seen, from whence we concluded it to be rather more populous. At night 5 fires. 1770, April 22. The country hilly, but rising in gentle slopes and well wooded. A hill was in sight which much resembled those dove houses, which are built 4 square, with a small dome at the top. In the morn we stood in, with the land near enough to discern 5 people, who appeared through our glasses to be enormously black. So far did the prejudices which we had built on Dampier's account influence us, that we fancied we could see their colour, when we could scarce distinguish whether or not they were men. Since we have been on the coast, we have not observed those large fires, which we so frequently saw in the islands and New Zealand, made by the natives in order to clear the ground for cultivation. We thence concluded not much in favour of our future friends. It has long been an observation among us that the air in the southern hemisphere was much clearer than in our northern. These some days at least it has appeared remarkably so. A headland called Dromedary's Head, not remarkably high, had been seen at the distance of 25 leagues, and judged by nobody to be more than 6 or 8 from us. It was now in sight plain, and our distance from it by the ship's run was 23 leagues. Yet the seamen acknowledged that though they knew how far it was from them, they could not think that it appeared more than 10 leagues off. The hill like a pigeon house was also seen at a very great distance. The little dome on the top of it was first thought to be a rock, standing up in the sea long before any other part was seen, and when we came up with it, we found it to be several miles inland. 1770, April 23. Calm today. Myself in small boat, but saw few or no birds. Took with the dipping net Cancer erythrotatus, Medusa radiata, pelagica, Dagasogema strumosa cornuta, Holothuria obtusata, Phalodoce velella, and Mimus volutator. The ship was too far from the shore to see much of it. A larger fire was however seen than any we have seen before. The master to-day in conversation made a remark on the variation of the needle, which struck me much. As to me, it was new, and appeared to throw much light on the theory of that phenomenon. The variation is here very small, he says. He has 3 times crossed the line of no variation, and that at all those times as well as this he has observed the needle to be very unsteady, moving very easily and scarce at all fixing. This he showed me. He also told me that in several places he has been in, the land had a very remarkable effect upon the variation, as in the place we were now in. At 1 or 2 leagues distant from the shore, the variation was 2 degrees less than at 8 leagues distance. 1770, April 24. The wind was unfavourable all day, and the ship too far from the land for much to be seen. 2 large fires, however, were seen, and several smaller. At night, a little lightning to the southward. 1770, April 25. Large fires were lighted this morn about 10 o'clock. We supposed that the gentlemen ashore had a plentiful breakfast to prepare. The country, though in general well enough clothed, appeared in some places bare. It resembled in my imagination the back of a lean cow, covered in general with long hair, but nevertheless where her scraggy hip bones have stuck out farther than they ought, accidental rubs and knocks have entirely bared them of their share of covering. In the even it was calm. All the fires were put out about 5 o'clock. Several brown patches were seen in the sea, looking much as if dirt had been thrown into it, but upon a nearer examination they proved to be myriads of small dagases. 1770, April 26. Land today more barren in appearance than we had before seen it. It consisted chiefly of chalky cliffs, something resembling those of Old England. Within these it was flat, and may be no doubt as fertile. Fires were seen during the day, the same as yesterday, but none so large. 1770, April 27. The country today again made in slopes to the sea, covered with wood of a tolerable growth, though not so large as some we have seen. At noon we were very near it. 1 night only was in sight. Some bodies of 3 feet long and half as broad floated very buoyant past the ship. They were supposed to be cuttlebones, which indeed they a good deal resembled but for their enormous size. After dinner the captain proposed to hoist our boats and attempt to land, which gave me no small satisfaction. It was done accordingly, but the pinnace, on being lowered down into the water, was found so leaky that it was impracticable to attempt it. 4 men were at this time observed walking briskly along the shore, 2 of which carried on their shoulders a small canoe. They did not, however, attempt to put her in the water, so we soon lost all hopes of their intending to come off to us, a thought with which we once had flattered ourselves. To see something of them, however, we resolved, and the yawl, a boat just capable of carrying the captain, Dr. Solander, and myself, and 4 rowers, was accordingly prepared. They sat on the rocks expecting us, but when we came within about a quarter of a mile, they ran away hastily into the country. They appeared to us, as well as we could judge at that distance, exceedingly black. Near the place were 4 small canoes, which they left behind. The surf was too great to permit us, with a single boat, and that so small, to attempt to land, so we were obliged to content ourselves with gazing from the boat at the productions of nature, which we so wished to enjoy a nearer acquaintance with. The trees were not very large, and stood separate from each other, without the least underwood. Among them we could discern many cabbage trees, but nothing else which we could call by any name. In the night many fires were seen. 1770, April 28. Botany Bay reached. The land this morn appeared cliffy and barren without wood. An opening appearing like a harbour was seen, and we stood directly in for it. A small smoke arising from a very barren place directed our glasses that way, and we soon saw about 10 people, who on our approach left the fire and retired to a little eminence where they could conveniently see the ship. Soon after this 2 canoes, carrying 2 men each, landed on the beach under them. The men hauled up their boats and went to their fellows upon the hill. Our boat, which had been sent ahead to sound, now approached the place, and they all retired higher up on the hill. We saw, however, that at the beach or landing place 1 man, at least, was hid among some rocks, who never that we could see left that place. Our boat proceeded along shore, and the Indians followed her at a distance. When she came back, the officer who was in her told me that in a cove, a little within the harbour, they came down to the beach and invited our people to land, by many signs and words, which he did not at all understand. All, however, were armed with long pikes and a wooden weapon made something like a short scimitar. During this time, a few of the Indians who had not followed the boat remained on the rocks opposite the ship, threatening and menacing with their pikes and swords. 2 in particular, who were painted with white, their faces seemingly only dusted over with it, their bodies painted with broad strokes drawn over their breasts and backs, resembling much a soldier's cross-belts, and their legs and thighs also, with such like broad strokes drawn round them, which imitated broad garters or bracelets. Each of these held in his hand a wooden weapon about 2½ feet long, in shape much resembling a scimitar. The blades of these looked whitish, and some thought shining, insomuch that they were almost of opinion that they were made of some kind of metal. But myself thought they were no more than wood, smeared over with the same white pigment with which they painted their bodies. These 2 seemed to talk earnestly together, at times brandishing their crooked weapons at us, as in token of defiance. By noon we were within the mouth of the inlet, which appeared to be very good. Under the south head of it were 4 small canoes. In each of these was one man, who held in his hand a long pole, with which he struck fish, venturing with his little embarkation almost into the surf. These people seemed to be totally engaged in what they were about. The ship passed within a quarter of a mile of them, and yet they scarce lifted their eyes from their employment. I was almost inclined to think that, attentive to their business, and deafened by the noise of the surf, they neither saw nor heard her go past them. At one we came to an anchor abreast of a small village consisting of 6 or 8 houses. Soon after this an old woman, followed by 3 children, came out of the wood. She carried several pieces of stick, and the children also had their little burthens. When she came to the houses, 3 more children came out of one of them to meet her. She often looked at the ship, but expressed neither surprise nor concern. Soon after this she lighted a fire, and the 4 canoes came in from fishing. The people landed, hauled up their boats, and began to dress their dinner, to all appearance totally unmoved at us, though we were within a little more than a half mile of them. Of all these people we had seen so distinctly through our glasses, we had not been able to observe the least signs of clothing. Myself, to the best of my judgment, plainly discerned that the women did not copy our mother Eve, even in the fig leaf. After dinner the boats were manned, and we set out from the ship, intending to land at the place where we saw these people, hoping that, as they regarded the ship's coming into the bay so little, they would as little regard our landing. We were in this, however, mistaken, for as soon as we approached the rocks, 2 of the men came down upon them, each armed with a lance of about 10 feet long, and a short stick, which he seemed to handle as if it was a machine to throw the lance. They called to us very loud in a harsh-sounding language, of which neither us nor Tupaya understood a word, shaking their lances and menacing, in all appearance resolved to dispute our landing to the utmost, though they were but 2, and we 30 or 40 at least. In this manner we parleyed with them for about a quarter of an hour, they waving to us to be gone, we again signing that we wanted water, and that we meant them no harm. They remained resolute, so a musket was fired over them, the effect of which was that the youngest of the 2 dropped a bundle of lances on the rock at the instant in which he heard the report. He, however, snatched them up again, and both renewed their threats in opposition. A musket loaded with small shot was now fired at the eldest of the 2, who was about 40 yards from the boat. It struck him on the legs, but he minded it very little, so another was immediately fired at him. On this he ran up to the house, about 100 yards distant, and soon returned with a shield. In the meantime we had landed on the rock. He immediately threw a lance at us, and the young man another, which fell among the thickest of us, but hurt nobody. 2 more muskets with small shot were then fired at them, on which the eldest threw 1 more lance, and then ran away as did the other. We went up to the houses, in one of which we found the children hid behind the shield and a piece of bark in one of the houses. We were conscious from the distance the people had been from us when we fired that the shot could have done them no material harm. We therefore resolved to leave the children on the spot without even opening their shelter. We therefore threw into the house to them some beads, ribbons, cloths, etc., as presents, and went away. We, however, thought it no improper measure to take away with us all the lances which we could find about the houses, amounting in number to 40 or 50. They were of various lengths, from 15 to 6 feet in length. Both those which were thrown at us, and all we found except one, had 4 prongs headed with very sharp fish bones, which were besmeared with a greenish coloured gum that at first gave me some suspicions of poison. The people were blacker than any we have seen in the voyage, though by no means negroes. Their beards were thick and bushy, and they seemed to have a redundancy of hair upon those parts of the body where it commonly grows. The hair of their heads was bushy and thick, but by no means woolly like that of a negro. They were of a common size, lean, and seemed active and nimble. Their voices were coarse and strong. Upon examining the lances we had taken from them, we found that the very most of them had been used in striking fish. At least we concluded so from seaweed which was found stuck in among the 4 prongs. Having taken the resolution before mentioned, we returned to the ship in order to get rid of our load of lances, and having done that, went to the place at the mouth of the harbour where we had seen the people in the morn. Here, however, we found nobody. At night many moving lights were seen in different parts of the bay, such as we have been used to see at the islands. From hence we suppose that the people here strike fish in the same manner. 1770, April 29. The fires, fishing fires as we supposed, were seen during the greatest part of the night. In the morn we went ashore at the houses, but found not the least good effect from our present yesterday. No signs of people were to be seen. In the house in which the children were yesterday was left every individual thing which we had thrown to them. Dr. Solander and myself went a little way into the woods and found many plants, but saw nothing like people. At noon all hands came on board to dinner. The Indians, about 12 in number, as soon as they saw our boat put off, came down to the houses. Close by these was our watering place, at which stood our cask. They looked at them, but did not touch them. Their business was merely to take away 2 of 4 boats, which they had left at the houses. This they did and hauled the other 2 above high water mark, and then went away as they came. In the evening 15 of them, armed, came towards our waterers. They sent 2 before the rest. Our people did the same. They, however, did not wait for a meeting, but gently retired. Our boat was about this time loaded, so everybody went off in her, and at the same time the Indians went away. Myself, with the captain, etc., were in a sandy cove on the northern side of the harbour, where we hauled the seine and caught many very fine fish, more than all hands could eat. 1770, April 30. Before daybreak this morn, the Indians were at the houses abreast of the ship. They were heard to shout much. At sunrise, they were seen walking away along the beach. We saw them go into the woods, where they lighted fires about a mile from us. Our people went ashore as usual, Dr. Solander and myself into the woods. The grass cutters were farthest from the body of the people. Towards them came 14 or 15 Indians, having in their hands sticks that shone, said the sergeant of marines, like a musket. The officer, on seeing them, gathered his people together. The hay cutters, coming to the main body, appeared like a flight, so the Indians pursued them, however, but a very short way, for they never came nearer than just to shout to each other, maybe a furlong. At night they came again in the same manner, and acted over again the same half-pursuit. Myself in the even landed on a small island on the northern side of the bay to search for shells. In going, I saw 6 Indians on the main, who shouted to us, but ran away into the woods before the boat was within half a mile of them, although she did not even go towards them. End of section 36. April 1770, Part 2.